Hello and welcome everyone. Thank you very much for tuning in. This is a screencast-o-matic presentation for the warm-ups for the news cycle upon which we're starting here to close out the second quarter. So please go ahead and type down the questions and the answers as they appear, and remember to format your answers in a different colored font. Let's go ahead and get started for the questions of the day that correspond to the two lessons for the week of 111 through 115. From Monday and Tuesday from 111 and 112, what key events comprise to form the making of the Middle East history? Identify at least 6 important events. So in this lesson, we learned about the following things: the Turks, the Ottomans, the Safavid Empire, the Mughal Empire, and more. So let's go ahead and delve deeper into this lesson by giving you an overarching view of some of the content that we talked about. Religion is one of the most important things that defines the Middle East story. The rise and expansion of the 3 Abrahamic religions that we talked about in class preceding this lesson are notable and consequential. How people use religion as a tool for control and expansion is the key part to understanding the Middle East history. Additionally, the empires themselves expanding, coming and going, and leaving, show us and tell us the story of the Middle East. The rise and the expansion of certain groups that use military force, for example, are notable as well. Trade is also really important too to understand the story of the Middle East. Their close proximity to control trade routes, whether they be access to the Silk Roads or to sea travel or ocean travel, is really important. And in a sense, in world history and in world cultures, the group of people that controls the trade routes essentially controls a lot about the world. The gunpowder empires will also be really consequential too. As I alluded to in my opening statement here, the rise of weaponry, and of course guns and gunpowder, and advanced artillery allow military history to change forever too, through the Ottoman, Safavid, and Mughal empires alike. Additionally, the West changes the Middle East in a big way. Relationships with European countries help and at times hurt the continuity and cohesion of Middle Eastern countries. If you remember, we talked about the Byzantine Empire before, and then also the Romans do in fact impact the development of the Middle East in a big way too. Cultural shifts begin to take place too, which in many ways affect the Middle East from a historical and cultural standpoint. The advancements and achievements of architecture, the arts, science, and more define specific countries and their story of evolution. So understanding the Middle East, understanding these 6 components can help in a big, big way. Let's go ahead and move on to the next question of the day and its corresponding answer. From Thursday and Friday, from 114 and 115, identify and explain at least 6 different reasons that define and explain why the Middle East is such a complex and controversial region. So in this particular region, or this particular lesson, in this region of the world, the Middle East, we talked about contemporary issues that are in fact impacting the Middle East today and could very much so impact it into the future. Here are some of those things right now. Natural resources. So the ownership and trade of key natural resources is very important. From gold to oil to chrome and more, these types of resources that the Middle Eastern countries have are controversial and consequential for the rest of the world. Governmental style and rule is also really important to understand the Middle East and how it might act in the future, because the style of these governments are drastically different than our constitutional republic here in the West. The style of Middle Eastern governments in Middle Eastern countries, of course, and how they implement powers and laws and oversee those laws are quite interesting. The geopolitics of the Middle East is also complex to understand as well. What do I mean by geopolitics? I just mean how countries adapt and deal with the legacies of things like war, civil war, genocide, refugee crisis. All those things too are impacting the region in a notable fashion. Some other things to make note of here is the fight for equality in the Middle East is also notable. So the push for equality by certain repressed groups throughout history is gaining strength, with different results and outcomes for sure, but that's something to make note of. For example, women in Afghanistan now have a greater role in society than what they used to in previous years. One word might sum up a huge part of the Middle East controversial moments from today, and that would be Israel. The battle for and over religious holy lands still wages on without concession from either side, and although many other international countries have kind of sort of gotten involved, this creates a powder keg situation for the Middle East and the world. Additionally, the future is also going to be tough to predict with the Middle East because upholding relationships with some of these countries can be challenging due to the ever-shifting cultural dynamics. So, for example, our relationship with Saudi Arabia is quite interesting because, of course, we want oil and access to it. But the Saudi Arabian government is quite the 180 opposite of the United States in many different ways. So how we navigate this relationship is going to be quite complex and interesting, to say the least. So there you guys have it. Those are the answers to the questions of the day. Please go ahead and finish the first half of the warm packet template and then move on accordingly. Thank you very much.